Just let me know when I need to. Okay.
Not to that point in the show.
But that is everyone's favorite part.
It's the highlight.
Alright. It's live and recording. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep, Facebook good.
Oh, here it is. I got to go retweeting.
YouTube's live. Facebook's live.
Yep.
Alright.
Live on many devices.
We are live on many devices.
Many devices. We are live.
Then YouTube is Dan and Tim present. I'm calling Derrick. So if you want to pimp that. Whenever you guys are ready, we can go.
All right, let me share it on Facebook and bring friends in.
I'm retweeting.
We gotta make sure we got the levels good. Who's talking?
Our special guest coming up will be Derrick Goold.
Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to talking it over with him.
I am too. Tim is still typing, and then we'll be ready with you.
Yeah, if there was any way to do this otherwise, I'm sure there is.
There is.
Yeah, of course there is. I'm just the clown who doesn't know.
There you go. How exciting. One iPad.
It's all coming together, boys. Skate, boys, skate.
Countdown in about 10 seconds, Tim.
All right, game on. Oh, we're on.
Just the Hot Stove Show graphic.
Oh, all right. I didn't know. I'm ready. If you're ready, I'm just posting away. Sure. No, I don't want to see myself. Actually, I want to see Billy D. Williams. That's who I want to see. Oh, hello, friends, and welcome into another edition of the Hot Stove Show, presented by Mattress Direct. Look, it's Dan McLaughlin falling victim to my dress code. Look what happened.
I think I fall within our regulations.
Parameters?
That we started many
I have
years
fallen
ago.
off.
Yeah,
I have
you
fallen
have
off
fallen
badly.
off, but that's okay. We're gonna get it
You
back
can
going.
see my little bird legs. I mean, it's awful. First off, they're like 24 inches. It's a mess. And then secondly, they're
24-inch legs.
24-inch legs.
Nice.
Yeah, me and Mickey Carroll would look each other in the eye. And then there's Tony La Russa used to make fun of my legs. They're tiny as can be. So yeah, you get to see that, and I'm dressed like this. So
I think you look good.
It's a holiday look.
It's
a holiday
a holiday
edition of the
look,
show.
and I think you look great. Happy holidays to everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Season's greetings. Merry Christmas.
And this is our final show before 2019, and we're going to have Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch on, who was just at the winter meeting, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll get an update on what's happening with Bryce Harper and if the Cardinals may get a lefty, and we're kind of in a holding pattern with all that, but still there's a lot of stuff to get into as we move forward in the show.
Yeah, and I always look forward to talking it over with Derrick, getting his perspective. And I know Cardinal fans are not only monitoring the left-handed relief situation, is the Harper and Machado market, not necessarily for the Cardinals, but is it falling back? I don't know, Buster Only wrote a piece about that 2 days ago. And then also, I feel like the biggest topic of the offseason has been Dexter Fowler, actually.
No doubt.
More so than Paul Goldschmidt.
Well, I thought...
And Derrick did the big story, which
Yeah.
was really well done, in the Post-Dispatch on Sunday. So I'm going to talk about that with him.
This is not to butter him up because he's going to be our guest. I thought, and you're right, that is the biggest story maybe in baseball for 24, 48 hours. And to me, it was bigger than baseball because it dealt with a human being. It dealt with life, and someone that is dealing with depression. And so it'll be interesting to get Derrick's take on that, how Fowler bounces back, maybe how the story, came to him, and doing the story, talking to others around him to get background on it. I'm really curious to visit with Derrick about that.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. Derrick's always a great guest as it is, but with that story being his story in the Post-Dispatch, that's even better. A lot of people are getting on board with our show, the Hot Stove Show, and we're grateful for it. Spread the word. Even if you can't watch it live on Facebook or Twitter, you can always podcast it on Scoops with Danny Mac or the Tim McKernan Show anytime you want. You're welcome to participate in the chat. And now we have one place where all of the comments go, because one of our producers is a wizard. This Patrick Donnelly, I feel uncomfortable talking to him. I feel like he probably needs a translator to communicate with him because he's too intelligent to be associated. But he's got this whole thing going on.
Thanks a lot, Tim. That's a reflection of me.
I left out the prepositional phrase "with me." You're good. I'm the creep. So now we have a YouTube channel as well. And what is the YouTube channel, Patrick? Dan and Tim Present, so you can follow that as well. Of course, we're going to be doing this throughout the month of January and then from spring training. And courtesy of our title sponsor for the Hot Stove Show, Mattress Direct, we will be announcing something that I think will excite a lot of people. The Hot Stove Show, courtesy of Mattress Direct, will be giving away a trip to spring training in the month of March.
Awesome.
How do you do? You'll be staying
It's gonna be fun.
PGA National, hanging out with Dan and myself in Palm Beach Gardens, Jupiter, Florida for the Cardinals in spring training. So make sure you spread the word. You got to be a subscriber, though, to all of our channels. So make sure you're following and subscribing to the Hot Stove Show on Twitter. Dan McLaughlin and Tim McKernan present the Hot Stove Show on Facebook. And then also the new YouTube channel, which is Dan McLaughlin and Tim McKernan present. So that will be coming up with more details. Mattress Direct is the title sponsor of this show. If we didn't have sponsors, we wouldn't have a show. So if you're in the market for a mattress, and a lot of people start getting ready for the new year by making sure they're making resolutions, and one of the things that people say, I want to get in shape, I want to eat better, I want to work out, but if you don't wake up and feel good, those things will fall by the wayside. I eat the worst when I'm tired, and I had a major sleep problem, and I got a great mattress, a mattress that stayed cool, and that has helped my sleep, and now, knock on wood, it's a non-factor. I get great night's sleep, and that allows me to feel better throughout the day, and that'll allow you to stick with your resolution, so your resolution be getting in shape, eating properly, whatever the case might be. Support our title sponsor, Mattress Direct. They're online at stlmattressdirect.com. They're the local guys, Pat McKernan and his staff, stlmattressdirect.com, and they are also the ones we're partnering with for our spring training trip coming up in the month of March.
All right, partner, let's bring in Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch and stltoday.com. And Derrick, first of all, tremendous job in the winter meeting. So many stories you were able to get to. So many people, though, back here in St. Louis, we can tell you what resonated was the story on Dexter Fowler. Tell us a little bit about the background in visiting with Dexter Fowler and how this all came about and really breaking the story about a year ago of dealing with depression and what that year was like for the Cardinal right fielder.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I hope this sounds all right.
It does.
Sounds wonderful, sir.
Oh, my gosh, that's a very big head of mine that you guys have behind you. Sorry, viewers.
Scary.
Everybody's computers just crashed. So this goes back a bit, Dan, and I know you and I have talked about this away. I talked to Dexter. I approached Dexter during the season just to talk to him about where he went from there, and he said that he would be happy to talk with me in Atlanta. He traveled with the team to Atlanta. He's from there, and he was just getting out of the boot, and little did he know he was about to go back in the boot a few weeks later. But he was starting to do activities and want to be around the team, and he said that he'd give me some time there. We talked, and I'll be honest, I thought, I got to ask him, would he like to go elsewhere? Would he like to go to a place where he knew he had a better fit, a better just sense, would he be looking for a trade? We talked a little bit about that. And then, of course, I asked, kind of repeated the same questions I'd asked him all season as to what's gone wrong. What can explain what seemed to be missing from your game? And was it foot trouble? Was it Did he have a hard time keeping his weight up? What related to the lethargy that just seemed to come in play? And so we talked through all those things. He acknowledged some things, but he most of all stopped short just by saying, "Look, there were mental issues. There were concerns that I had. There was obviously the relationship that fractured, frizzled, and frayed with the former manager." And so, he talked a little bit about that. Then on the last homestand, I said, "Hey, the winter meetings are in Vegas. You're going to be deep into rehab. It sounds like the Cardinals are going to have, commit to you, and you'll have a big part with the 2019 team. Would it be possible to just catch up with you in Vegas? Maybe even, find out what Vegas is like from your point of view?" And he said, "Sure." And so I followed up on that. He hosted the Cardinals management the day before, then texted me and said I could come on out if I wanted to and meet with him. And we sat at his dining room table in his great room, or I guess not dining room table, but at a table there in a great room at his house, and just talked. And I asked him the same kind of questions to say, "Hey, look, did you go searching for answers? Do you feel you found something that could explain just what vanished from your game?" Because he has steadfastly said that a player just doesn't plummet off the side of a cliff, not unless there's a physical reason. And he had no physical reason. And I said, "Did you have an answer?" And that's when he said, "I was depressed." That's when he said that whole quote. So that's the background to it.
When I saw that, I don't know what your reaction to it was, Dan. Of course, you probably have more background being around the team with calling all of the games. I took that. I think sometimes people say they are or were depressed, meaning they were just down. And so that's how when I read your story, Derrick, that's how I took it. I didn't actually take it in the literal sense, but you took it, and I think the vast majority of the audience, because now it's become in some capacity what I think is a healthy mental health discussion, as being literal, and that's the proper way to take it.
Yeah, he had symptoms of depression.
Wow,
that's what he described to me. That both relates to just how he approached things, the help that he sought, how his family saw it. I asked him what some of it was like, and he said that's probably best for my wife to answer, and that the quote was from her in the story. And he wasn't. I know people go like, "Well, he was sad or he was disappointed," or I'd be sad too if I didn't produce. It was deeper than that. I mean, this was a gripping situation. I thought his wife put it pretty hard. That it wasn't just defeat on the ball field, and her phrase was that it was defeat in his heart. And that's pretty profound when you think about a wife saying that about a husband who she knows well, and let's be honest, has a reputation for being very buoyant around the ballpark.
Yeah, to me, it's as a guy that calls the games and someone that writes about the players, as someone that hosts a morning show, we're not medical experts, and I understand why a fan would say, "Well, you're sad because you're hitting 182, or you're upset or sad because you're not performing at a level that you did when you're 25." And that's why I'm very careful about this. I'm not a doctor. I can't give you the clear definition of clinical depression, or what is depression, or what is sadness as opposed to depression. But clearly the guy was not right. And that's where I'm at with this, Derrick, is that I just treat it as a human being that was down. And as you know me, Tim, I mean, I do try to be upbeat about things. I mean, I was upset about the Harold Baines thing. I mean, to me, it's a guy in the sun, and that's his day, and let him have it. Let's not knock him down. So I'm real careful, Derrick, with this, and I don't know how you approach it too.
Very carefully.
Yeah.
I approach it with utter and complete respect.
It's a good way to put it, yeah.
I've had people in my life who have gone through depression. I have people in my life who are still going through depression. I know that can be a serious, difficult thing. Hey, look, I put the description. I asked him this question, and it's not something that I brought out of thin air. I mean, I put the description in the story because I thought it was only fair that the question I asked him, I was like, did it feel like you were playing baseball underwater? Did it just feel like you could not breathe, like you were swamped? or you couldn't see, and he, he added some things that, it was mostly like nodding and everything. I thought, well, if I'm going to describe it that way and he's going to agree with that description, it's only fair that I put it in the story too. I really took it from the approach of like, look, you describe what you were feeling. I am in no position to tell you what you're feeling. The moment I do that, the moment I'm not being honest, the moment I'm not being respectful to you opening up, and the more I'm being arrogant that I should tell you how you feel, which I don't think you should anybody. The way I write, I understand it's entirely in the eye of the beholder. It's not I can't, if somebody reads my stuff and goes, well, that's not really good, I can't go, well, yeah, it is. No, it's their opinion.
Right.
It's their view. Same thing. I can't tell somebody how they're feeling. That's not fair. All I can do is empathize, sympathize, and ask them to describe how they're feeling. And that's the way I took it. This is an important conversation. He was being very honest, and I promised him, and I said, all I can bring to this is fairness. I want to hear your side. I want to hear you describe it, and I'm going to present it fairly. And that's what I hope I did.
You did. And Derrick, this is my final question about this, because I think some fans may say, well, has this been a designated PR move by Dexter or his agent or his family? But I want you to answer this if you can. This was, as you talked about, this has been set up for months in advance. So this isn't like, hey, Derrick's out in Vegas, let's get together and try to gain sympathy from a fan base. That was not the way that this was set up, correct?
No. This was set up through Dex at the end of the season, and then I notified the member of the Cardinals that I had done this before, or that I'd reached out to Dex, and given the comments that were made, it made all the more sense.
Sure.
It was not. I never heard from the agent. I never heard, and I'll be candid. That's not for lack of trying. I did reach out to the agent. I never heard back. But I did hear from Dexter leading up to Vegas, and that I was going to be out there, and it just made sense. And then let the Cardinals know that I would. Because that's fair, right? If we have a professional relationship, I should let them know every so often if I'm going to talk to a player, especially given the topic that came up on, what was it, Monday, where they threw their full support behind him. So there was that timing element there.
Sure.
Had they not done that, I still would have met with Dex.
Gotcha.
I am enamored with how much attention and how, I guess, polarizing Dexter Fowler is in St. Louis. We've all three of us have been around the organization for approximately 20 years, give or take. Dan, a little longer. Derrick, you've been on the beat now for how long?
What am I coming up on my 17th or 18th year?
Yeah, okay. So there's a healthy sample size here. I recall Tino Martinez in 2002, I guess it was, in 2003, got a lot of ire. But to have a player be this polarizing, and again, in a year that within the last, 2 or 3 weeks, the Cardinals have signed one of the best players in the National League, and the free agent period is still going on, Dexter Fowler is certainly the focal point. Why do you think that is? Get a pulse of the fan base.
Me or Dan?
I'm asking you, but yeah, Dan, I'd be curious what you think too.
I think it's more layered than maybe we have time to go into. I think you can go to the superficial things, that he is a Cubs hero.
That's my point. Yep.
Yeah, that he's a legend in Chicago. That's where his life. That's where his career will always be known. He could go out and win a batting title with the Cardinals, and I doubt that would overshadow winning that World Series. I think part of it is performance. I think a lot of it is the fact that they signed him to be the leadoff hitter and be the center fielder, and he's neither of those things. I think some of it, too, is the fact that there was a clear reluctance on his part to sign with the Cardinals. At least that was the perception.
Right.
Because the Cardinals had to go, I think we reported at the time the phrase over the top. What we know now is they had to go a year beyond other people. I think in a lot of ways he came to personify certainly some fan irritation with the manager. If there was an irritation with Matheny, you could certainly choose Dexter's side in some of the conversations. But if you had full support of them, or if you wanted to support the manager, then you could choose against Dexter. So I think he covers all these things. And then there's also, look, he has faced some awful, despicable, terrible, vulgar things spat at him on Twitter that it's hard not to call racist. He's had some things said to him that were terrible, and he retreated from Twitter as a result of it. You guys have seen it. We've all seen it. We've talked to him about it. He had the time where he's just had a lot of moments where there are things that are small, like the former Cubs thing, and then there are things that are big, like the race relations, that all kind of meet at this Dexter Fowler nexus. And I think it's difficult to talk about. It's something that I've asked him about because I'm not in a position. It's the same kind of thing with a lot of times I'm not in the position to tell him how he feels. That's not right at all. I'd like to hear from him how he feels. But you can't go and see some of the responses on Twitter and not just wince at some of the things that are said towards him.
I think that there was an excitement when he was signed, and then he got to spring training and did what I think was intended to be a benign interview. And it was not with you though, right? Or was it a group interview, Derrick? Where he
Which one?
We're talking about the Trump immigration and how it impacts his family.
Okay, so that was Mark Saxon.
Okay, that's what I thought.
ESPN.
Okay.
It was. He wrote the story. I'll say that.
Okay.
There were other. There were times that we talked about it, but Mark deserves a lot of credit for doing for asking additional questions and getting him to talk about it openly for print.
The reason I bring that up is I felt like that started things off completely unintentionally because it was his first spring training. He had just arrived in Jupiter, and I would imagine he may have heard things going in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I would imagine all of us can confirm this, that Ozzie Smith and some other members of the organization took him out in Jupiter, wanted to get to know him, and so on and so forth. And he
Ozzie flew to Vegas.
Oh, into Vegas. Okay.
He flew to Vegas and played golf with him.
Oh, how about that?
About getting comfortable.
And then he gets there and he's asked a question and he answers it honestly. I don't think he was taking some political stance. He was just answering the question honestly. And then the next thing he knows, he's like, "Oh my God, I'm catching heat for something that wasn't even me speaking out. It was just asking how it impacts my family." And I would imagine now, especially that I feel like we have a gauge on how these kinds of things impact him, that it started before he even played his first regular season game with the Cardinals.
I don't know that. I know that was a difficult time for him because he thought he was defending his family. But when I asked him, how to connect the dots, he was, I guess he was forthright in saying, like, look, he wasn't able to do that. So I wouldn't look back to that as some kind of epicenter.
But okay, that's from the Fowler perspective. I'm talking from a part of the fan base here.
I'm sorry.
No. But I mean, both are in play in the discussion. But I think a part of the fan base that may have been excited, but may be big fans of President Trump's, took offense in a hypersensitive, politicized era that was an anti-President Trump statement, which.
And there was already a question of, does he want to be here? How does he fit in? All that stuff.
Right.
Are we going to talk baseball? I'd like to talk baseball.
What would you like to talk? I'm curious.
All right.
About did you read the Buster Olney piece, Derrick, about how the market might be falling back for Machado and Harper?
Yeah, I'll be candid. I do my best to read every Buster Olney piece because I have a chance to learn something.
That's a nice endorsement.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Well, I know you got to go, Derrick. So we're going to keep 10 or 15 minutes, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's start with Harper because fans are curious with that, and then the pursuit of a lefty. Those two things. Where do you think the Cardinals are at this point?
Yeah, Manny Machado's on his tour right now.
Yes.
In Philadelphia today, and Harper has met with some teams. The Cardinals did not meet with him in person in Vegas. I'm not sure that that's a huge deal. As somebody told me close to Harper, he's pretty familiar with the Cardinals and what they have to offer. So I think there's just there's a bit of a square dance going on, a little do-si-do with Harper right now. There's a lot of teams that would like for those years to come tumbling down. They're cool with the salary that he wants to command. It's the years that has given a lot of teams pause. And so, Boris's approach usually is to play this out, let the off season go for a little bit, let the calendar create some urgency, and then it wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up back with Washington at this point, given how that's played out, because that's where the relationship is. That's the team that has already shown a willingness to go to that length of contract. So it wouldn't shock me at all. The Cardinals are on the periphery. Their pursuit of Harper since Goldschmidt, and this is an important thing, since Goldschmidt has definitely been one of what's the opportunity there, not what's the urgency there. I think they had a far deeper interest, or far more aggressive interest before the Goldschmidt deal, or during the Goldschmidt deal, I guess I should say. So now they can wait and see because they have their bat, and they can operate, on needs for the roster, and then they can keep track of what Harper is doing beyond. Boris and DeWitt have spoken. The DeWitt family definitely recognizes what Harper would bring, not just to the lineup, but to the franchise as that level of player, that level of contract, that level of commitment, that level of marketing. It's just a matter of, the description that I have received multiple times is that if they have to choose between extending Goldschmidt for 5 years or committing to Harper for 10, they find the Goldschmidt deal far more palatable.
And the pursuit of a lefty.
Yes, they need one.
And that's the truth.
They are in need of one. They've been poking around on the free agents that you know of. There's a wide spectrum of them. There remains, and this might be a conservative estimate, I think there are still 3,412 relievers available.
Right.
Give or take 3,000. There's just so many available on the market. Now, there are two elite guys. I think we'd all agree with that there are two elite lefty relievers in Andrew Miller and Zach Britton. Britton makes a lot more sense to the Cardinals from my perspective. That's not necessarily what the Cardinals are saying. But Britton can be the closer that they don't have, can also be the lefty. He's a guy who has multiple roles, and for the kind of contract he's going to get, that makes a lot of sense, because you think about Brett Cecil, right? Brett Cecil does not have the multiple roles. The contract he got, because he wasn't successful in any of the roles, now looks worse. But if you get Britton and he can provide multiple different roles, then you're good. The price, though, has sent them scurrying into the trade market. That's something that they explored in the GM meetings and winter meetings. Talks with the Giants about Will Smith, Tony Watson. I've been trying to figure out if they're able to engage Cleveland. They have talked to Cleveland, obviously. I don't really have a good feel for if they got any traction with Brad Hand. Hand is somebody who the Cardinals have tried to go after before, for the same reasons that they would have interest in Britton. They like what Hand could bring as a lefty, as an eighth inning guy, or as a closer. So it's out there. If they go a specialist route, you could see, here's a name, Oliver Perez, who has been very successful as a lefty specialist. And then the Cardinals would dive into the late inning right-handed role where they have kept a presence. What does Kimbrel want? Kimbrel's been way out of their interest as far as his asking price, but does that change? What does Dave Robertson want? I think, Dan, that the Cardinals' interest in Dave Robertson goes back to when he was with the White Sox.
Right.
They think of him as a sneaky good closer type, and if they sign a specialist, you could see how Robertson would be a fit. He represents himself, so it's a little harder to get a feel on what his interests are, because you're really talking to him. He's his own agent, so it's fascinating in that regard. Not sure how to report that, to be honest. But but we know that there's a lineup there, and that's the direction the Cardinals could go.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. This is knowledge. Knowledge is power, Dan.
Well, Derek, did you miss your next appointment?
It was lunch with my son.
Oh, well, go
wow.
ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead. We could keep you all day.
That hit
so.
me in the pit of my stomach when you said
Yeah.
that. And you said it
And
past
my mom,
tense, too, like it can't happen anymore.
It's okay. No, they're very patient. They're downstairs reading. It's very nice.
Okay.
Where are you guys going? White Castle or something?
No, we're gonna go for pho.
What?
Vietnamese dish.
Excuse me?
PHO. It's a soup.
Oh, is that the new dish at Hot Shots?
It is, with riplet dust.
Proud sponsor at scoopswithdannymac.com.
Hey, can I ask a question of you guys?
Yes, sir.
Pose.
Am I eligible for the free trip to spring training?
Yes.
No.
Just tell
No.
the post is badge to Bill, our LLC. It'll be fine.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Have Roger text Dan.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to stay at PGA.
Derek, thanks for doing this.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. Happy holidays. Hey, happy holidays if I don't see you guys both. Merry Christmas.
Right back
Happy
at
New
you.
Year.
Happy
Thanks for doing it,
holidays
Derek.
and
We
Merry
appreciate
Christmas
it.
to you and the family.
It's good
All right,
stuff.
guys.
All right,
See you.
there
Bye,
it
buddy.
is. Derrick
Thanks.
Goold with us here as we're in the Design Air Heating and Cooling Studios. I nerded out in that segment good. I got my good nerd on.
He's great.
Yeah.
I was working with Derek back when he was covering the Blues, and I was covering the Blues. So I've had a long relationship with Derek, a fruitful relationship. Yeah.
with
So
Derek.
we were young bucks running around trying to figure out hockey and figure out our way around Western Canada. So it was a lot of fun. Derek and I have been very close for a number of years, and
Can't argue with the Vancouver stop.
it was a lot of fun.
The Vancouver stop's
Yeah.
a strong stop. So what
It
years were you
was.
doing Blues? This was Fox Sports Midwest?
Yeah,
I'm going to make a
Fox-
play on 97 through 2001.
Oh, way more than that.
Really?
I did the Blues for like 10 years, something like that.
Even when you were calling Cardinal games, really?
Oh, yeah. There was one time I did this was a fun one. I did a day game, pregame show for the Cardinals, and then flew out and did the Blues game at San Jose playoff game that night. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a fun one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Same day.
My gosh.
Yeah. That was a good one.
That's impressive, sir.
It was
tip my
fun.
cap.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, I saw when the Blues were really good, like Dimitra, Pronger,
Yep.
McInnes.
Yep.
Brett was still around. I was there in the Keenan days too, and that was fun in a different way. It was just fun to kind of be around it and see it. And it was also hard, because they weren't very good at times, and he was dismantling. Guys didn't know if they're going to come or go.
Right.
And then you saw, Joel come in, and everything changed when they won the President's Trophy. And Joel was just awesome.
The best.
God,
Yep.
he was great
The
to deal
best.
with. And then I saw the bad. I saw it when they gutted the thing. I mean, one of the most vivid memories I have is seeing the Lauries when they own the team, and Pronger scores a goal in the playoffs. And Mrs. Laurie is up on the front row of the glass, banging the glass like with every other fan in excitement as they eliminated either Dallas or Colorado to move on to the Western Conference Finals. And that was the heyday, man. I mean, that was, you had in the mid-'90s with Mr. Shanahan, God rest his soul, who was just awesome, and the Quinn regime, and they were out spending money to get the Shanahans and the
famous Scott Stevens
the
situation.
Scott Stevens thing, and they were spending money to bring those players in, and then they went out and got Keenan, and then you had
And of course, 99.
Yeah, dismantle it, but then they go out and get Joel and, kind of build the thing up. And then you thought when they got the Laurie ownership group, at least to me, I thought, this is what you want. You're going to have deep pockets, and they want to win, and they're going to be here forever.
And an NBA team, potentially?
NBA team, because that was really the piece. I mean, they wanted to get Vancouver. I thought that was going to be the piece to get them here and play at Enterprise Center. But, things happen as we've seen, and life goes on, and now the Blues are kind of at a crossroads again, it seems like. But here we are talking baseball with Derrick Goold.
We've been calling shots on this show.
Yes, sir.
Inadvertently.
Yes.
Because I know I was just throwing a dart on the Goldschmidt thing just because I felt like it was a textbook Cardinal deal. Happened to hit. You have been on Bryce Harper going back to Washington
Yes.
from the outset on that
Yeah.
as well. I'll ask you to throw a Blues-related dart, and then we'll go back to the Cardinals.
Boy, you're tough on me today.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it's kind of. I was trained
Okay.
by Mike Wallace in 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Would you? What
That's
percentage
what's
would you put?
taken you from Mike Wallace to Deke Dodo.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
it's the
that's
same
usually
thing.
the-
That's
the
exactly.
path that
That
takes
was
you there.
more Morley Safer's thing. Do you think Joel Quenneville is going to be the Blues head coach next year?
I do.
There it is. This show makes things happen.
I do. You know, when I saw the reports that he was going to go to Philly,
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy collecting, I think, $8 million. You know, why
I
would
think
he?
it's $6 million for like the next couple of years from
Yeah,
Chicago.
whatever it is.
Right.
You know, why would he go to Philly? And this is no disrespect to Philly or their organization. I mean, they've got talent, but he can go anywhere he wants. I would be curious, and I haven't spoken to Joel in a long time, but I'd be curious, does he want player control? Does he want to have a hand in that? And certainly he wants to coach again. I mean, I've talked to people that do know, and they say yes. And I'm going to go back to the Cubs thing. Can you imagine?
Yes, I love that. I
being-
love where you're going with this.
Yes, the coach that wins in St. Louis.
Yep.
Can you imagine?
Yep.
He knows what it's like here. He knows how close he was. I think yes, this is the guy. I think he
Nicely
wants to
done.
come back here.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like learning a new city. He's got family that loves it here and friends that love it here. So, yeah, I mean, do I have insider knowledge on this? No. It's just a guess.
Yeah, just like with the Goldschmidt and the Harper thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a guess of you have the pick of the litter. You've made more money than you've probably thought of in your lifetime. Your next stop has a chance to be remarkable, special, and something that is going to be remembered forever. Legacy.
Yep.
You know, three cups in Chicago, that's legacy. They had one forever. The first cup in St. Louis, legacy. Like you're the Mount Rushmore in St. Louis sports forever.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that adds to the allure of coming to be able to be the coach of the Blues and say, I can have that job to win. Now, I would say this too. I think the next 2 to 3 weeks with the Blues is fascinating because when I watch the Blues, Tim, and I've watched more this year, and I follow the Blues, and especially when I covered the Blues for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in there day in and day out. So, I mean, I'd like to think I'd understand the sport a little bit, maybe an educated fan, okay? When I watch them play, I'm like, I see talent on the ice. There's talent there. I don't see a collection of a team right now when I'm watching. So would a coaching change make that much of a difference, like a Joel Quenneville type? And this is no disrespect to Craig Berube or whoever they bring in there. I don't know. You know, so if he comes in, what are they going to do? My point is, what are they going to do in the next 2 or 3 weeks, right? So does Doug Armstrong gut this thing? You know, is Tarasenko gone and Shen gone because of his contract and Pietrangelo gone? You know, you're talking about good players. And if that's the case, does Joel Quenneville want to come in where you're starting at bottom of the barrel?
Right.
You know, but if he's got pieces and he knows that the owner is willing to spend to the cap, which he is, it's an intriguing job.
They're 9 points back with some games at hand on some of the teams
4
they're
or
chasing.
5, I think. Yeah.
And so, yeah, if that's where it was, I was only the person with 9. But either way,
4 or 5 games in
4 or
hand.
5 games
yeah.
in hand. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was 69-60. So either way, I would hate to see them do that because they have won 3 of 4.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like it can happen. I mean, if you remember in 2009, they were dead.
That's right.
And then they made that surge.
Mason makes a run and goal.
And so I would hate to see them do that just because I love playoff hockey in
I do
general.
too. It's
But
awesome.
I love that thought process on Quinn because it's Theo Epstein-esque. I don't think Theo
Absolutely.
made the plan to do that.
Right.
But that's what wound up happening with what he did in Boston in 04 and Chicago in 16.
Would you gut it though and say,
No.
Joel, do you want to?
Oh,
like
well,
here,
if he wants to, then that's different. If he wants to, then that's different.
boy, if you're,
I don't think he would though, because he's 60 or 61 years old. You know, I don't know if he's
Yeah.
in the mood for a
A
full-on
total
rebuild. Yeah, I'd be surprised.
But what if he said to Joel, "You run player personnel.
Yeah,
I mean, it's yours. Go for it."
yeah.
I do know this. I think fans would be fired
Oh my
if
God!
he was coming back.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know, I think that would be part of it too. I mean, from a PR standpoint of the excitement of having that guy back.
Huge win.
I mean, he's turned into a Hall of Fame coach. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and as you mentioned when we were just starting on the discussion, just a really, really good guy. Although
I love him.
99% of people involved in hockey seem to be really, really
they
good
do.
guys. So that's about par for the course. Hey, so many questions coming in. A lot there with Derrick on Dexter Fowler, which is amazing to me that he has really become, I think, in addition, of course, to Bryce Harper, the focal point of the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
that's something
You made a
else.
great point. I mean, I'm with you. I think your point was spot on. Here's Paul Goldschmidt, who is awesome and has a chance to completely transform your lineup in the middle of the lineup. And I don't think our fans have seen him just enough, I guess, because he's in Arizona. You just don't see him every day. Great defender, all-star, Gold Glover, runs bases. I mean, he checks like every box you want. By all accounts, good citizen. And yet, it's kind of like, okay, they made the deal.
It's like third or fourth into what we're talking about right now.
And it's like it's talked about more, it seems like, when I was reading articles and I'm like, Derrick, I scour, all the different writers and stuff. It seemed like it was talked about, I don't know if you agree, more in the, opposing cities of the NL Central.
Yeah, Ben Frederickson said Chicago and Milwaukee were more upset about it than Cardinal fans were enthused about it. I truly believe that so much of the psychology of a part of the Cardinal fan base, which I'm not by any means, for the record, dismissing, is rooted in, yes, Ozuna came here, and yes, Goldschmidt came here, but they were trades. When is this organization going to show that it's moved into the new era and going to spend the money? And that's what so much of it's about. If they would have signed Ozuna or Goldschmidt as free agents, I think there'd be a greater appreciation for it.
Maybe.
Which again, I think it's a subliminal element of the psychology of a part of the fan base to feel like that there is this commitment from the organization, because some people doubt that. And I think that's why the moment Goldschmidt trade was announced, there were people going, well, does that mean they're out on Harper, even though you just got one of the best hitters in the National League, guy who performed better than Bryce Harper did?
And you're saying that we're winning now. I mean, it's a free agent to be. So it's not like you're acquiring a guy that's 5 years under deal.
Right.
You're saying we're trying to win right now. That's why you do that deal.
Do you think that what we initially saw, as reported right after the end of the regular season, that Harper received a 10-year, $300 million, but no opt-outs from the Nationals?
Probably.
Is that still going to be there? Are we going to see like this market? I don't know. Who was the pitcher last year where it's like, oh my God, he could have taken this, and then he wound up with this? Was it Arrieta? Was it Lynn? Maybe one of you guys remember. But either way, like the market collapsed on the free agency last year.
And you could say the same thing with Moustakas. He was offered a nice deal and turned it down.
And I think Lynn's he signed for less than his qualifying offer, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
With the Twins.
And for fans that didn't see it, he signed for 3 for $30, I think, with Texas. Yeah.
So I just don't know if we're going to see this again, because at this point, probably right around today or tomorrow, even though I don't think it's a written rule, it pretty much shuts down until after the new year for the holidays.
Yeah. I mean, guys kind of, you're right, unwritten rule, Christmas holiday, unless it's an emergency, leave me alone. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like normal business, right?
Right.
A lot of people don't do business after Christmas except Scoops with Danny Mac.
That is always on.
Inside
24
STL
hours.
it just turns out
Pete's
more.
designing hats constantly.
I mean, that never stops.
It never can. There's too
Hot
much
Shot
demand.
Sports Bar and Grill, the Cardinal Nation with Brian Walton. I mean, a lot of things that keep moving.
Look at this hat.
Yes.
There's just so many things to market here.
Yes, it just keeps going on and on. But yes, it is kind of an unwritten rule that does. I mean, you may see some under the radar things, but in terms of, I think, the major guys, no.
You're probably, because we're basically at the holidays. Most people, a lot of people will be off after tomorrow for a week.
Right.
That we probably won't see Bryce Harper, Manny Machado move until January.
I would think.
Yeah.
But
then is it a question, is it because the market's falling back, or is it just the pace is slow? Because I thought we were under the impression, I think Mazalek said this when he was with us at the Improv Shop, that he thought that this would not be the glacial pace we saw in the 2017, 2018
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah. And most people I talked to, Tim, thought that last year was an outlier and that this year would be back to normal. But yet, at the winter meetings, everything was slow.
Yeah, and Olney's theory was you now have organizations kind of in tank mode. and it's accepted. And because the Cubs and Astros had success with it, others are following suit. So now the pool is automatically reduced to teams that would compete for him. And then there's some organizations that are never going to do the deal that Boris has been talking about, or Lozano, even though he isn't like visible with Machado. And so now you're dealing with a limited pool. And then furthermore, the Boston Red Sox, one of the teams that could drive the market up, are not in on either one of these
Cutting
guys.
salary.
Yeah. And the Dodgers
Cubs
might be, but the Cubs are not. And so then the Yankees have said they're not in on Harper. Who knows if they're lying in the weeds? They are in on Machado. And so some of these big boys might not be in it. And so then would it fall back? And if it does fall back, then do the Cardinals actually get in? That's what I'm asking. That's why I'm bringing it
Well,
up.
I think I'm steadfast on this. 6 years or below, I think the Cardinals say, where do we start talking?
Wow.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I do. I just think at that point they're comfortable with it. I'd also say this. We're going to hear more and more, especially this time next year, and then the offseason after that especially. We got 3 years of play, and then the next CBA hits.
Right.
And there was a lot of talk that the players did not get what they should have in the last CBA, whether you agree with that or not. That was kind of the prevailing thought, and I think that is hanging over the game right now. So when you have a Harper or a Machado or some of these big guys that you're talking about, are their agents thinking of that? Are they thinking about the opt-out prior to that? What are they thinking what is it going to look like then, the CBA, as it pertains to their clients moving forward? Will it be greater, lesser in terms of what the free agency market could be? I think all those things are on the table, but that's something to think about moving forward. I want to go back to the Dexter Fowler thing, too. I know a lot of people have been talking about, well, it looks like the Cardinals are all in on Dexter. Well, certainly it does. I mean, he's the guy coming back. And I've said this to you and privately and to you on this show. If that's the case, I mean, am I the only one that really likes watching Jose Martinez hit?
Yeah.
You still have to have a fallback plan. And Tyler O'Neill, who was just announced as the Cardinals minor league player of the year 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it was. Hudson was the pitcher of the year. Do I like him? Sure. The upside is great, and I think he plays very good defense. The strikeouts are high. He's going to walk into some home runs, but Jose Martinez is they say, professional hitter. Man, he's your fallback if Dexter – I mean, what's going to happen – and this is going to, everybody's going to be looking at this. Those at-bats that he takes in spring training, people are going to be watching. When most guys that have had as much experience that he's had in the game, Matt Carpenter does not have great spring trainings. At least he has in the last couple of years. And he's come out hitting 130, it seems like. Does anybody really care? No. When Holiday's hitting a few years ago, I remember he's hitting like 230 or something in spring training. Anybody? No. You don't care. What happens if Dexter is? Or people, well, here we go. Yeah. But what if he's working on something in it where those guys get the benefit of the doubt, or in that first month he comes out slowly? I just think that first month for him, man, more than anybody else, Tim, is critical to get off to a fast start. And I mean a fast start would be, hitting 275 and walk into a few home runs and steal a base or two, play a solid right field. He'll be fine there. But if he doesn't, man, there's some pressure there on him, the pressure on the organization, and really pressure on Mike Schilt, because then you start having to answer those questions of, hey, have you thought about double switching late? Did you think about maybe sitting him a day? How much longer can you go with this? Those things are going to be out there. Yeah. They will linger.
I saw a tweet, and maybe one of you guys, Dan, if you didn't see it, it was about 2 days ago, regarding the Braves situation and how Fowler could wind up being a good trade candidate to go to Atlanta.
He's from that area.
And I thought, I wonder if that's even in play. It certainly doesn't hurt the Cardinals, I don't think. I realize some fans are unhappy about it, but from their position, from a negotiating standpoint, to have this, story in which Dexter talks about what he went through last year, both mentally and then also on the field. Then Dexter announces that he is not going to go to what Derrick reported was a wedding in Mexico, and he is going to come to winter warm-up for the first time, which was something that was important to some fans. And it makes it look like the Cardinals are really committed, and perhaps they are if something doesn't work out, but they would be still willing to part ways with him. And then Atlanta has a need for potentially exactly what Dexter would be. And as you made reference to, he's from there. Would he go there? Would the Cardinals do that? and I don't know if this was a local reporter who tweeted this or a national guy, but I don't just follow any national guys. So
I didn't see that.
Yeah, again, it wasn't saying it was going to happen, but the Braves just continue to have this need for the outfield, and perhaps the Cardinals and Braves would wind up doing something.
I would say this, and this is not disrespectful to Dexter Fowler. To me, he would have to show that he's back on literally good footing. He's got to show he's healthy. You know, he's been in a boot in October. And after the article by Derrick Goold, I think you'd want to see that he's solid in all facets of his game and his life and all those kind of things. And quite frankly, Tim, you know, last year the numbers they are what they are. I mean, he had a terrible year, you know, in terms of the numbers and analytically speaking. So if you're to make a deal like that, you know, the Cardinals have to swallow an enormous amount of that type of deal. So while it's fun to play those kind of scenarios out, to me, Dexter Fowler's got to show that he's healthy physically before any of those things happen. You know, that's another reason why spring training is important. You know, he may have to play longer in games than he likes. You know, a lot of times those veterans are out there and it's, you know, a couple of at-bats and then out to the shower and maybe a golf course or fishing or with their family or whatever. He may have to have some extended appearances in games just to get his legs back or to show the footing is good and healthy and can stay out there and be the everyday player that they want him to be. I think that's something that will be talked about and needs to be shown in spring training.
Lot of questions from the audience here today in the Triad Bank viewer chat line, which is all in one place now, courtesy of what the brilliant Patrick Donnelly has put together here via Restream. So you can watch us on YouTube now. Once again, Dan and Tim Present is the name of the YouTube channel. Watch us, of course, on Facebook Live, like you may have already been doing for the last month and a half, or on Twitter on Periscope. And you can post your questions, and they all go to one feed now for us. It's all sponsored by Triad Bank. That's where Dan and I set up our company's account, and that's where we recommend you do your commercial banking. I think a couple things stand out to me about Triad Bank, which is why when I do bank, I want to make sure that I'm with them and why I advocate for them here on the program. First off, they're online at triadbanking.com. But it's just a number of people there who are pulling in the same direction for businesses in the St. Louis area. And so that's why my experience with them, and I know a bunch of other people who, as it goes, yeah, I bank there too. And I go, really? And then it's like, I like Jim Regna. I like Tom Anstey. I like, you know.
I like Tom.
Yeah, I'm a
Tom's
Tom
a
Anstey
nice
guy.
I like Jim too, though.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's like, oh, is there something we need to address with you and Jim?
I love Jim
I didn't know
too.
if there was
Jim,
something there.
He's good people too.
But I know a bunch of people there, and I really like the place. And a lot of businesses in St. Louis have gone to Triad Banking, and it makes sense because of the way they do handle business. It's triadbanking.com. They are the sponsor of our viewer chat line where you can submit your questions here. Let's take a gander and see what we've got. How long of a leash do you think Mike Schilt will give Dexter Fowler if he does struggle out of the gate?
$1 million question, isn't it? I think it's a great question. Boy, I would answer it this way, and I'm not trying to sidestep it. I think you got to. It's a lot of it is the eye test.
Yeah.
How's he moving?
Yeah.
What's the swing look like?
Because when Carpenter was performing really poorly,
they had analytics that showed that.
Yeah, he was ripping
Right.
the baseball, and then it finally
That's the
came
other
into
part.
play. Yeah.
Right. So the analytics department, you know, what are they telling you? They have all those numbers, Tim. So, you know, are those numbers? I'm just getting emotional. With the whole thing. This is really emotional.
Fowler thing has gotten to you.
Are those numbers, you know, telling you that he's at the level to where he should be?
Yeah.
And if he is, then you got to play him, right? You know, now if you sit him a few days and Jose Martinez is 8 for 8, can you imagine the fan base going, why are you sitting him again? Those things could happen, you know. But again, I think the eye test is part of it. And those guys, Tony La Russa would tell me a great thing. I always go, I think of a million things when these things are going on. But Tony La Russa would tell us all the time, he said, look, you guys have an opinion up there. I'm okay with it, whether I agree with it or not. He said, but always remember, I know more than you. He didn't mean baseball knowledge. Right. He says, I know more than you about Dexter or Paul DeYoung or Jed Jerko or Yachty, meaning I've got insider info. I know if the guy's feeling good. I know if he's feeling bad. I know if something's going on with his family. Those are sometimes part of the reasons. Those are the background of the reasons of the things that I do. And so sometimes you got to realize that Mike Schilt knows more than we do when you're watching a game and saying, well, why is he doing this? Why is he sticking with Fowler here? Well, maybe those numbers are telling him he's close, and that's why he does do that. But it is a logical question, and I think every fan, including me, is asking it too. How long do you stick with him? Because if he gets off to a slow start, those questions will be there with other guys that are waiting in the wings as the roster is currently constructed.
This one coming in regarding the left-handed relief situation.
I was just emotional.
Yeah, I know. I knew that you were worked up, but I didn't know it was actually going to take place right here on the program. I think we're fighting for Zach Britton as we speak with whoever else. What's the approximate money range, do you think?
To me, it's not only money, but it's years. And a lot of times it becomes more than the kind of like what Derrick was talking about with the Fowler thing. It was about adding the years, and I think that's something that's happening here. And when that first domino falls of the left-handed relief market, you'll know more. I don't want to throw numbers out there. I've heard numbers, but you don't know. Right. Sometimes you hear X and it's not X. To me, it's more about the years. And I'm with Derrick. Out of Britton and Miller, if that's what this particular individual is asking about, the one thing I like about both guys, and I certainly like about Britton, is the fact that he can close.
Yeah.
And if you have those types of guys that can fall back, and if Hicks is your guy, having a fallback is very, very important. And I think that's something the Cardinals would put a great stock in that aspect of a lefty coming to St. Louis.
Submit your questions, Triad Bank viewer line. And as we said at the outset, Derrick Goold, our guest, and many of you are just joining in here, watching, whether it be on Twitter, Periscope, or now our YouTube channel, which is Dan and Tim Presents, so subscribe to that. We're excited that we are going to be giving away, courtesy of our title sponsor, Mattress Direct, online at stlmattressdirect.com, a spring training trip. This is airfare. This is hotel at PGA National. This is hanging out at dinner with me and Dan. This is going to a Cardinal game on Saturday. I think the date is like the 9th or something like that of March. But either way, we're excited about it. Mattress Direct's making it possible, so we're going to be giving that away. But you got to make sure you subscribe to all of the various platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we do these shows once a week. This will be our final one for the month of December. But we really appreciate Mattress Direct, Triad Bank, and Design Air Heating and Cooling for getting on board with our show. It was just an idea that we had a couple months ago, and here we are doing a show. It's a show that if you miss it, you can podcast it, subscribe to Scoops with Danny Mac, or the Tim McKernan Show, and we rebroadcast it there, and you can listen to the show. Derrick Goold, our guest earlier on, Design Air Heating and Cooling, the sponsor of our studios. They are online at designairservice.com. They are the #1 Trane dealer in the Midwest, and you will make sure that your home is properly heated when it is cold and properly cooled when it's warm. Seth has been at both my home and Dan's home and made sure that everything is working properly. You want to make sure that's the case because you know it's going to get brutal at times in St. Louis, whether it's cold or hot. And Design Air really growing their business, which is exciting to see because Seth and his family have been doing it for generations. They're online at designairservice.com, the #1 Trane dealer in the Midwest. Design Air Heating and Cooling, the sponsor of our studios here on the Hot Stove Shows. Dan, a couple people are asking this question with regard to what the Cardinals will do from that utility spot where Descalzo was thought to be the guy.
I like that one, too.
And he wound up going to the Cubs.
Yeah.
What do you think now is in play there?
I think a number of options. Clearly Munoz is a guy that would have an inside track. Max Schrock was not picked up in the Rule 5 draft this past Vegas meetings, and that was a guy that a lot of people this time last year thought Schrock was ahead of Munoz. He did not have a great season in terms of the bat. Now, probably not picked up. Right time of year for the Cardinals with the second baseman pool pretty heavy right now in free agency. If it was a low free agency class, you may have seen him picked up. He's known for his bat, but didn't hit as maybe to the level that some thought. Can play a little third base. So he's a guy in your system right now that may get a longer look in spring training. So if you're watching those games on Midwest this spring, you're going to see, I would think, a lot of him this spring. There are some other names out there, Tim. I mean, as Derrick mentioned, and he's right, it's amazing the number of and names that are out there that are still available.
Still
man. In free agency, and some of the names that you would go over, you're like, man, that guy's a good player. I like that guy. I like that guy. I like Daniel Descalso. Now, I like him on a personal level, but I like him because he's a good player.
He can play so many positions.
And he added outfield. That was the thing I liked, is that he was a left-handed bat. He's added outfield, so he's can play that. He's been a finalist for a Gold Glove at third base, and he can play shortstop. So anytime you're talking about a utility player that hits from the left side, Cardinals need that. And the fact that he can play outfield and shortstop, that's versatility. So he signs a 2-year deal with the Cubs. My understanding is the Cardinals were in on him, came up short. I don't know what the offer was, but they did have interest, and I do understand from some sources that the offer was made. Now, I did not get that confirmed from Mo, but I did hear that from other people. The other guy that I was hoping to see back, but I don't know if the Cardinals could have offered him enough at-bats, was Matt Adams, who was back for a second go-around at the end of last year, and he signs a 1-year deal with Washington. He got $4.5 or $5 million bucks. And to me, I find Matt Adams over the years intriguing, and I say that because he's never had a season where I've seen him get full-time playing time at first base, and if he gets that, 30, 35 home runs is not out of the question. He plays fine over at first base, even though a lot of people, I think because of the body type, he was big, they wondered, can he move? Is he going to be a good defensive player? He's very capable over there, if not better than what people think. So the fact, though, that he's not a third baseman, shortstop, outfielder, he's limited to first base, I think that hurt him and probably limited the interest from the Cardinals. So you don't have him coming back, and good for Matt. He gets a nice 1-year deal with Washington.
Final question. Machado is somebody who has been on a tour this week.
I think it was Chicago, New York, and now Philly.
That's correct. The south side of Chicago.
Yes.
New York and Philadelphia. Where have you been saying? You've been saying he's going to Philadelphia, have you not? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You think that's where it winds up going there?
I've kind of, now I'm leaning towards the Yankees.
Yeah.
When the ownership group of the Yankees said they were, I don't know if you saw that quote. It was like a month ago. There was some. Remember, he had the hustle, Johnny Hustle thing. I'm not, whatever he said, but I'm not Johnny Hustle, whatever it was. And the Yankees kind of said, I don't know if that is great for us. That kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit and said, really? Okay. Because if you've got ownership or front office people saying that, imagine what they're saying behind the scenes.
Sure, right.
So, but with the Phillies and them coming out and saying, we've just got money to spend, we got money to burn, essentially, we got to get a guy. If they're not going to get Harper, to me, they overspend for Machado, and he would be the guy. So probably, I would think, Machado gets an offer from the Yankees, where apparently he's always wanted to go, and from things that you read, he gets that thing going, gets it up from the deal up from the Phillies, and you play one against the other, and there's your choice. But it looks like it would be between those two. At least that's on the surface what it would be.
Something that kind of I find fascinating, and I don't know how many other people will find it fascinating. You have 3 East Coast markets.
Yep.
That certainly are passionate, oftentimes a little more angst-ridden than what you will find in the Midwest, with New York and the Yankees fans, fresh off of, by the way, perhaps being even more angst-ridden because the Red Sox just won the World Series 2 months ago. You have the Nationals trying to keep their guy in Washington in the Beltway. And then you have Philadelphia, a team that was in the mix for the playoffs, fell apart in September, and then their owner says, we're going to spend crazy money this offseason. No matter what, one of those organizations for sure is going to be left out on the Machado-Harper thing.
Right.
And so you're going to have, no matter what, a fan base being especially irritated.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like Philadelphia might wind up being the one which could be left out if Machado goes to New York and Harper winds up going back to Washington. And that's why when I saw that quote from the owner.
And they had a major collapse at the end of last year, too.
The final 25 games or something
Historic
was an absolute
collapse.
debacle, which is why Gabe Kapler said something along the lines of, this year I'm going to hold players accountable in the media. I'm just like, okay, the owner's saying we're going to spend crazy money, and the manager's saying I'm going to hold players accountable in the media. I'm just like, you guys are doing everything from a PR standpoint the absolute wrong way. And then on top of it, now they might not wind up getting one of those two guys. That story, because like I said, Washington, New York, Philadelphia, there's only two guys, but there's three cities. One of them is going to get left out.
Yeah, and the Phillies, though, with the money to spend, it's not just, though, what I would say, it's not just the way you can combat it is say, hey, we lost out on those two guys. We're not that far off. As you saw last year, we played good baseball for 4.5, 5 months. We're going to supplement. We're going to get that guy. We're going to get this guy. We're going to get this guy, and still spend and keep people at bay. And, you know, Tim, it all comes down to this. Winning solves everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, get off to a good start, win games, and people just, not to say that in Philly they're going to back off, but you buy you some time. That's the way I would look at it. Because they're going to have the money to spend if they want to. So your second tier or your 1As are out there. Go get them.
Yeah.
Go get them.
I just, knowing that, and I don't know well, have you ever been by WIP?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, WIP is,
it's awesome.
You know, that's sports talk radio.
Yes.
Like, the stuff that we got going on here is like nothing in comparison to what goes on at WIP. I mean, that's the epicenter of the angry Philadelphia fan, but it's great entertainment.
It's awesome. I love it.
And so last year, my shot called as I observed the team handling the moves that they did. I couldn't figure out what the San Francisco Giants were doing for the life of me.
And I think it was like, my thought was one last run.
Yeah, I
guess. With the older players that
and
they
I
had.
just thought it was just terrible. And I mean, if the Cardinals would have brought on Longoria and McCutchen, not because I'm anti those two people in particular, I'd just been like, what are you doing? I mean, you're buying an asset at its peak. This is just terrible baseball and terrible management in general. So now I'm going to put the official watch on the Philadelphia Phillies.
The official Tim McKernan watch.
It is. It brought you Paul Goldschmidt. Now the watch is on the Philadelphia Phillies.
You are the reason why.
And I didn't want to say that because it might come off the wrong way. But yes, Dan, since you said it, the reason Paul Goldschmidt's a Cardinal now is because of our deal at the Improv Shop with Mazalak. And now it's out. So do with that what you want. Nick, please tweet that. It'll be great for us all. But I'm watching the Philadelphia Phillies and their fans for all hell breaking loose in 2019.
It's fun when certain members of their media, because Tim McCarver has been with me the last couple of years in Philly as my partner. So, you know, in Philly, Tim was, you know, with Steve Carlton, enjoyed great years, and then worked in Philly for a number of years. So Tim is connected with a lot of guys that have been there in Philly, and many are national brands and names of, you know, and some have been, you know, some media guys that, as you said, could be a little maybe rough around the edges would be the best way to put it. It is fun, man, when they come in the booth and just start shooting the bull. Oh my God. But you're right. It's a different market, and they're going to be truly held accountable by,
because they've set the bar now.
Yeah,
I mean, they've actually said they were going to do it.
If you say you're going to spend, you got to spend.
Absolutely.
If you're going to hold players accountable, you got to hold them accountable. So, you know, when Gabe Kapler last year was really interesting, and I think we talked about it on a show a couple weeks ago. I think the Cardinals went in there and won a couple of games or something like that, and Gabe was, I don't want to say making excuses for his players, but he was, you know, saying, hey, this guy pitched well, and this player did well. And from my experience, the player really didn't pitch all that well. He gave up like a 3-run bomb with 2 runs in the 9th, and, you know, probably you could have said, well, he didn't have his best stuff.
Right.
You know, whatever. He's trying to protect his players. I get it. And it just didn't seem like it was a good fit in that market to be saying those kind of things. Yeah. So maybe his tone will change a little bit going forward this year.
I'm keeping my eye on that one, especially when it's your two neighboring markets, New York a couple hours to the northeast, and then Washington just down the road. If they're the ones who get them, and the Phillies are shut out, and then if they have a bad start, Gabe Kapler and the owner will be absolutely the target of the sports talk radio fans there.
Gabe, in the beginning of the season, warmed up or brought in a guy that hadn't warmed up. So he didn't get off to a great start. That usually isn't a good thing.
Hey, my golf partner, Cletus, says, I live Dan. I assume that was an autocorrect. I think it meant I love Dan. And so that's a nice endorsement.
Really nice. Yeah, we met him at the Blues game the other night. Oh, I did.
Best. He's the best.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
I'm a
nice.
big Cletus guy.
Thank you,
so there it
Cletus.
is.
I
There's Cletus.
appreciate that.
To all of our viewers,
And I live you too.
and listeners here on the Hot Stove Show presented by Mattress Direct, thank you for getting on board. The thing didn't even exist like a month and a half ago, so this has been cool to see.
fun.
And we're looking forward to doing it into 2019. I would imagine the next time we do a show, which I think will be in the second week of January, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right before your fantasy camp, is it not?
That's right. And there's a lot of buzz that I might be the utility infielder. The Cardinals.
heard.
That's why they didn't go after Descalzo.
I've had a couple of people call me about you.
Yes,
I've been
indeed.
giving scouting reports.
Yep. I'm anxious to see if my Steve Sachs disease, which buried me in 1992,
Is that right?
will return in 2019.
I've had two former pro athletes call me about you. I've had a front office personnel call me about you.
Yeah, there's a little buzz out there.
It's
Yeah.
making waves.
Yeah, Buster Only's been texting, but I want to give Derek the first. I want to give
Of course
Derek the
you will.
first story.
You want to give him a crack at it,
Absolutely.
you know, why not?
So that's when I will be. Yes, I'll be down there for that. We'll obviously be down there for our spring training reports for the Hot Stove Show, and of course, scoops with Danny Mac and the Tim McKernan Show. I'll be doing TMA from down there. Either way, for the producers, I mean, we have 4 guys behind the scenes here working on this thing. Patrick Donnelly and the wizardry that he's done with Restream. I love this thing to be able to watch all of the comments in one place. Gangster Pete, and of course Joe Roderick and Nick Yale. Thank you guys for working on this thing here over the last 2 months. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all of our sponsors, Mattress Direct, our title sponsor, Design Air Heating and Cooling, Triad Bank, Mike Kunderman, and his sponsorship with Bud Weiser for the winter meetings coverage last week. We're very grateful, and of course all of the listeners and viewers. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody and their families.
Happy
Dan,
holidays.
Season's
Merry
greetings
Christmas.
to you and yours as well, sir.
You too.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of the Hot Stove Show here on the Facebook, Twitter, and now YouTube channel.